Hi, I'm Brendan Martin. This is SEC Sidelines Sports with your host, Rob Browne, which Rob Browne is endeavoring to join us this morning. There's a couple of gremlins in the internet issues, but he'll be along shortly. I've got Chris Lee sitting in the orange, blue, and gray room to me. He's going to join us. We were a little late getting started this morning, so we are going to just jump right in. Make sure you smash that subscribe button down the bottom right-hand corner. Get you notifications on when we go live. If you're watching on Facebook, hit the like button. And with that being said, I'm going to bring in Mr. Chris Lee, and you have a myriad of titles. I don't know how to really promote all this stuff, but I guess your podcast is probably your biggest thing you got going, or am I wrong?
There's a lot of stuff going. Probably our biggest thing is our SEC YouTube channel, which is also available on a podcast feed where you get your podcasts. It's Southeastern 14 is where you find us on YouTube. That'll be changing sometime in the spring, the summer. As you know, there are going to be more than 14 teams in the SEC. We will change with the times, but for now, that's where you can find us. And for Vanderbilt stuff, VandySports.com and the Vandy Sports Podcast.
Now, when you guys start, when did you start the Southeastern 14?
February of 2021.
February of 2021. So for a minute, it looks like Rob is in here. I'm going to bring him into the show. Let's see if he is a part of it. Hey, Rob, how are you? Good morning, sir. You got all those gremlins worked out in Memphis?
I have no idea. We don't know what it is. I know that trying to deal with AT&T and Verizon simultaneously at the same time is like herding cats. And so I'm going to go over there today and find the guy that I deal with, and I'm going to have fun with him today. But we're going to have fun.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show. We are live. I just brought in Chris Lee. We just started. And we were just talking about Southeastern 14 that is going to turn into Southeastern 16 or what other fun name you come up with.
What is the name going to be? Yeah.
I think it's going to be 16. We have waffled a couple times. Yeah. And now what will happen is we will change it to 16, and a month later the SEC will add 8 different teams or something like that. That's what's going to happen. But
yeah, well, and I watch your stuff, and it's really good. I mean, you're talking a lot of basketball right now. We're going to head to Nashville Thursday afternoon, maybe earlier, but this tournament is going to be fantastic. I don't know which tournament has the most compelling storylines. I mean, I was on Buddy Martin's show last night with Franz Beard and Buddy, of course, and Brendan. And, the Gators, they dropped that one to Vanderbilt, so they know they've got to come in. I think Florida's going to come in there with their hair on fire.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I think I joke, you've got the two halves of the bracket, and I call the bottom half the Ricky Bobby segment, because you got 3 teams that just want to play fast in Kentucky, Alabama, and Florida, and they do, and they're fun to watch. And then the other part, you got Tennessee and Auburn, with very similar teams. You got Mississippi State. I mean, I feel like Texas A&M needs to be in the upper part of the bracket. They're a misfit in the bottom part.
Yeah,
and Tennessee can play faster too. But I think traditionally we think of them as a defensive team the last few years. Dalton Connect has changed a lot of things with that team. But yeah, it's interesting the way that it shapes up.
Well, watching the basketball this past Saturday, Florida loses at Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt won that game. It was just they got the win. And Kentucky would try to get close, but Shepherd, Dillingham, Kentucky scores like few teams, but they don't play great defense. No. To me, and we know there's only one team that's in the top 40 of both offense and defensive stats, and that's Auburn, and they probably don't have an NBA player on that roster. And I mean, there may be some free agents or what have you, but of all these teams, Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama, Auburn, South Carolina, is South Carolina's roster necessarily loaded with NBA talent?
No, it's not. No. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I think the more NBA talent's probably in the bottom half of it, but you got some old teams. Tennessee's an old team. Auburn's got a lot of old players that, Broome, KD Johnson, just feel like they've been around forever. So yeah, you've got, South Carolina, I think I told you this, had more guys on its roster who played more minutes than anybody in the league coming in at the Division I level a year ago.
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be a shock that they were better than we thought. Yeah, but it is particularly the older part, the upper part of the bracket is an older part, it feels like.
Hey, I like that stat. That's what I love about the content that you put out, folks. You need to be following Chris Lee, Southeastern 14. He's put together, it's a great team. You're not going to go on there and get lost. You're going to learn a lot. And I always say get pen and paper handy or pencil, whatever, but take notes. When you listen to these podcasts that he puts out, you just made a very, very salient point with me and our viewers. The bottom half of the SEC teams in the standings is where most of the NBA talent is.
Yeah.
Expand on that.
I think to be clear, I do not follow the NBA. I don't follow the drafts that much. And I do check it from time to time. And when I do, Dalton Connect is a prospect, but there's talk he's a mid-first round guy. I don't think any of the Auburn guys are prospects. You would think John Broome 20 years ago might have been, but I don't know anymore. But, you got half Kentucky's roster are probably first rounders. I would think that Zion Pullen is an NBA player. I watched that kid play, and he feels like he's an NBA point guard to me. Maybe they think differently. I would think that Mark Sears would have a shot probably. Again, I haven't – this is with just a few seconds of research on mock drafts, and I may pull one up as we're doing it. But it feels like – probably Kentucky's probably got as many NBA prospects as the rest of the league put together. If you want to go first round, surefire second round picks.
All right. Along that line, and that's when I saw where Dillingham's third in a mock draft, Shepherd is fifth, Dalton Connect is 13th. But you're right about that stat. The Stat Tiger. I love having Stuart Carter on the show a lot. He does stuff with Auburn Undercover and has inside the Auburn Tigers for years, puts together data like nobody else. He uses a stat in football, and it's going into the season, number of players who have started 20 or more games, number of players who have started 30 or more games. It's a lot of analytic algorithm type stuff. God, it really makes sense. You just talked about South Carolina. Here's what's a cool story. Picked last in the SEC, 14th, okay? And they end up finishing tied for second and have their best season win-wise in program history. And that includes when they went to the Final Four with Frank Martin in 2017. We're living in a different world. Would you say that the era of these blue bloods, people being scared of them, is passing away?
There may be something pertinent in there. I might phrase it a little differently, and you heard me hammer on this in football. I think it's an era of more parity because of the portal, because of NIL, because of all those things. I was listening to Gary Parrish, the podcast that he does with Matt Norlander. That's one of the two places I go to get my general college basketball information, the other being the Field of 68. Because I watch all these SEC teams, and I try to be ready to hit the ground running in March with the other teams, which I don't have time to watch. But if you listen to other people talk about them, that's helpful. And they were running through the 4th 1-seed line. And the conversation with Matt Norlander that Parrish was having was, all right, we got Purdue, Houston, UConn locked in at 1. And then it's, okay, we got Tennessee, North Carolina battling for the last one. That's perception. And Parrish said, hey, wait a minute. This is pretty close, and I could see this breaking a number of ways based on the tournaments to play. So you got those 5 teams. He said, I think Arizona still might have a shot. Marquette, Iowa State, Baylor, Creighton. That's what, 8, 9 teams?
Yeah.
In contention for a 1 as we go to the finish line here. Now, I think those are, and he made it clear, those are slim chances, maybe 1% chances. But here's the point. I don't ever remember a scenario where that was happening. Furthermore, they talked about how Connecticut is going to be the betting favorite to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
Purdue is probably going to be the number 1 seed in the tournament based on resume, and Houston's number 1 in the computers.
Yeah.
So we got it all over the place. I don't ever remember where you had 3 teams with a case for the 1 overall seed like that, and this many teams competing for the 4th one. I didn't answer your question directly, but I think that's the storyline that keeps playing in my head. It's this parity that we saw in college football. It is now feels like to me carrying over to basketball.
Yeah. So I agree with what you just said. It's not really a fear. I mean, Kansas, Duke, North Carolina, Kentucky. Do you think about those 4? In Indiana, Temple is the 5th winningest program in college basketball history. And there's only like maybe half a dozen schools in America that rank in the top 25 all time in wins for college football and college basketball. Texas is one of them. That's hard to do, but I think you're right. There is more parity. You watch the late night games. Fox, guy that watched was it UConn and Marquette the other night. There's a lot of really good basketball that comes on right after we watch these SEC games, and you better be paying attention to that because it's what you don't know that you need to know. And you talk about, I mean, Gary Parrish is he's a basketball on another level right here from Horn Lake, in Memphis. He's really knowledgeable. And I think about what you just said, UConn, that's my favorite. Okay. I'm not picking Perdon't, as Franz Beard calls him. I'm just not. When was the last time the Big Ten won it all? 2000. Before that, 89 with Michigan. Before that, 87, Indiana. So Tom Izzo, I love the guy, but it's been 24 years. And I think he's been to 8 or 9 Final Fours since then. That's why he's still there. But pick me an SEC team or 2 that you think can go really deep in the NCAA tournament.
Before I answer your question, I want to unpack one more or 2 more layers of that discussion. First of all, you just sat there and you named the Blue Bloods. Kansas was not among one of those 10 seeds that we're talking about, 10 teams in contention for 1. Duke was not in there. Kentucky was not in there. UCLA is not even going to make the tournament. Indiana's not even going to make the tournament.
Yeah.
And then the 3 number 1, the only team that's in that discussion at 10 is North Carolina. And they're not in that top 3 seed discussion.
Yeah.
So there's that. Teams from the SEC that I think could win the whole thing or make the Final Four. I know Tennessee's been a punching bag, the regular season Rick stuff. I just look at them. I have felt like they were the most complete team in the league for 3 months now. My opinion on that has not wavered. Yes, Tennessee has not run the table and smashed anybody and everybody. Tell me the last time Tennessee had 2 bad games back to back. I don't think it's happened all year. Yeah. So I like them. And if you like balance offense, defense, I think Auburn would probably be your most logical second answer, but Auburn has not beaten a lot of the good teams.
That's right.
I think if you're going that Alabama, Kentucky, Florida trio where they're all very alike in the way that they play, I would take Kentucky just because the top end talent. The defensive issues have been there, but they've also been there for Alabama and to some degree to Florida too. But I think the top end talent is just so much better than everybody else's. I think that's where you have to go.
Yeah, and we're sitting there thinking, okay, hotel rooms, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. It's Kentucky when they beat Tennessee at Thompson Bowling Saturday. Whatever hotel rooms there were left are gone, and it's either Tent City or, in my case, the mother-in-law in Clarksville. I'm looking at the Tent City. I'm kidding. No. I'm looking at the Tent City. No. Man, I love camping out. But anyway, think about with Tennessee, that's important because sometimes, like last year, UConn lost 5 straight during the season. A lot of people wrote them off. I'm not going against Bobby Hurley in a game. I don't want to go against him in the NCAA tournament. The guy was born to coach. He's so cerebral. He's so fast. I call him. It's funny. I'm married to Evolve for life. A couple of two or three of them up in Nashville. And the consensus among them is, yeah, but we don't do anything in the tournament. You can't, the guys on this team, I think what's different, you got to be careful about saying it's different this time, but Santiago Vescovi, he's been there for a long time. You know, Zakai Ziegler, been there a long time. Connect, he's new, but he's fought and scratched his way up from community college to University of Northern Colorado. As Brendan always says, go Bears. And he's got this 1 year. So it's interesting. I like the experience on Tennessee. Talent, Kentucky, I'll give it to him.
Yeah. Hey, look, if Dalton Connect got hit by a bus and he's out for the tournament, then not that I'm wishing that happens.
Yes, I don't.
Love watching him play and want to see him lead them on a run. That'd be fun for the sport. But then I don't think I'd pick Tennessee out of the first round. But he's the difference. I mean, I'm trying to think of big-time scores they've had. They've had Grant Williams, but he's a different type of player. I mean, Kevin Durant is the comp that people have made.
Yes.
They're different body types, obviously, but they're both guys that, good luck stopping them when they're on. That's the piece they've been missing. That's why I sort of discard all the, regular season Rick talk. Like I'm waiting to see where they get seated.
Yeah.
Because I think if they can get the final one and get out west, they've got a really good shot at getting in the Final Four. I worry, though, that if they get a 2, unless their matchup against North Carolina, I mean, Purdue has beaten them once. Zach Edey's just a hard guy for them to stop. They have trouble with elite big men. Connecticut, I think Connecticut's probably going to win the whole thing. And Houston, just because they can really grind you defensively. And they've got an elite point guard in Jamal Shed, too, which is going to be a problem for a lot of teams. But
yeah,
I think if they get the right matchup, and I think that's why winning in Nashville and scoreboard watching could be really important for them, because I think if they keep them east, I'm going to presume that they're going to get matched up with Connecticut. That's not who you want to be in a region with. And so I think a lot of their chances right on where do they get sent and who else is in the bracket.
Kansas, the more they lose, the higher they go up in there. They don't really move. They lost a bunch of road games, maybe 6 in the Big 12. Houston.
Yeah.
Houston's good. Last year, they didn't win it all. And they had the Final Four in their hometown, but they also had to go to Legacy Arena and deal with Auburn. In the second half, they took care of the Tigers. But there's something about UConn, and you and I and everybody watching this show knows this. The Big East basketball, the guard play in that part of the country, it's just better than Ezra. It's better than the rest of the country. I mean, team after team. You think about in the heyday of the Big East at Madison Square Garden, when Bill Raftery is calling a game, and the guy's shooting, he goes, onions. It's a cultural thing. Basketball is in the Northeast, like college football is in the Southeast. That's why you see these teams like a St. Peter's, or you look at these small private Catholic schools, Jesuit or not, they're really tough this time of year. Creighton, another Jesuit school. Give me your best conference, top to bottom, right now. Please.
Well, as an aside, one fallout of the last 15 years of movement is the destruction of the old Big East, which that tournament was electric. The teams, I just think that, and you got a lot of them still together. It's built around Jesuit Catholic ties. I think that when they had Syracuse and all those, it just was phenomenal, and it should have never happened, but that's the world we live in.
Yeah.
Best conference top to bottom, I think it's probably going to be the Big 12. And by the way, you mentioned Kansas.
Yeah.
They're holding McCullough and Hunter Dickinson out, and they're really thin anyway. Kansas may not get out of the first day. I don't even know who they play. But, they're thin already, and if those guys are hurt going into the NCAA tournament, there's a team that won't get out of the first weekend, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think you've got Houston. If Kansas were healthy, then there's still a team that could win some games. You've got Iowa State, you got Baylor. You got some teams at the bottom. You got TCUs, you got Oklahomas that have got a chance to make the tournament. I think the big Texas Tech is in there too, of course.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think their depth and balance and they always have a lot of teams in that top 4 seed range. That's going to be the case again this year. I just think that the Big 12 to me feels like the best basketball conference until somebody steps up and takes it, and nobody's done that recently.
If you took a survey, and by the way, let me say happy birthday, Elizabeth, my sister, Elizabeth Polk Brown. Many, many more to come. Love you. Happy birthday. She's watching right now. She's a big Auburn fan. But I've got to say, if you took a test, I guess did research, the one thing about the Big 12 and around the country, you go in areas where there are kids out in the neighborhoods playing ball. Yeah. I don't care what kind of ball it is, but they're outside playing. In areas where there's not a whole lot to do, you're going to have better players. You know, I remember asking Tracy Rocker, you know, he was a very good football player at Auburn. I asked him one time, May of 2010, he was speaking up in Memphis to an Auburn club meeting. I said, what's the biggest difference in the kids when you and I were in school together and the kids now? And he said, that's easy. He said, you know, the kids, when you and I were growing up, our parents had to come look for us to get us in at night. We were running from each other, running from the cops, you know, playing ball, you know, anything we could do to keep score. Now, kids laying around doing this all day. And so they get dropped off, you know, at practice. They've been in the air conditioning all day. We got to toughen them up. They're coming in here with all these stars, and they've been to all these camps, and it's me. All of a sudden, they get to campus, and they're one of 100. I was the best on my team. I just think the basketball in the Northeast, it's a cultural thing. Remember Dean Smith, all the great guards he got out of the Bronx and the Queens? I mean, Kenny Smith comes to mind. But I don't know. I love college basketball. Once watching your podcast, by the way, Chris Lee, Southeastern 14, is on with us right now. Do your brain a favor and watch what he puts out. He works harder than a dozen Mennonite farmers and a dozen rented mules. He's got a great team, and we love having him on the show. But I just think basketball is not as much of a cultural thing in the South yet. Now, in places like Memphis, it is. Yeah. I mean, it's everywhere.
It's starting to get there a little bit more, though, I think. You know, and just look at it. Like in the South, you have acreage is more available. It's easier to go out and play football on a field. You know, New York City, you don't have a big swatch of grass anywhere to go play football.
Central Park.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could play football on the streets, but hope you're not playing tackle. I mean, it's different. I mean, but I think travel ball is sort of probably broken down some barriers. You do have some hotbeds like Atlanta and places like that where there's a lot of hoops, and you know, Nashville's not anywhere near Atlanta's category, so strike that from the record. But yeah, I think a lot of it's just based on geography and the things that come with that.
Yeah, but I mean, now there's tons of, you just want to see kids outdoors, and that's where you get it from. And you look at guys like Hurley, though. Again, where did his dad coach? Was it DeMatha?
St. Anthony's.
Yeah, St. Anthony's. Yeah, the Catholic connect. There ain't nothing like the Catholics and basketball. And Gonzaga. I got to ask you real quick. I got to ask you because I know people like Tucker Osborne, who's watching down in Montgomery now, played for Bucky McMillan at Mountain Brook.
Oh, my
And they've been
goodness.
telling me about Bucky since 2012. Okay.
Yeah.
I was so proud of Samford, the folks on Lakeshore Drive, getting the win last night to win the SoCon. And that's the best season in Samford history. First time they've been to the tournament in 27 years. Great article by Kyle Tucker. Did you read that a couple of days ago about him?
I didn't, but he's been on my radar for a few months.
Yeah. And hopefully Bucky's going to be on the show with us Friday, but we've had him on before. Bucky ball. Is he going to build like what Gonzaga? I mean, there's a lot of money there Sanford has some very, very, very wealthy alumni that have already done enough to keep him so far. But, what do you think about Buckyball?
I think Buckyball, man, I've not seen them, but I've heard. I mean, they shoot from all over the place. I think defense is going to be the thing that if he wants to get a big-time job, he's probably going to have to overcome. But, look, you're playing at Sanford. They haven't been to the tournament in 24 years, so there's that. He's going to be a name. I think he's more a Southern guy. So my guess is if he gets a job, it's going to be maybe somewhere in the SEC, maybe somewhere else that's Southern oriented, warm weather climate. He's from Alabama. I mean, the place where I think he'd fit is Nashville. But that's a whole other discussion if you want to have that one.
Well, who would not want to live? Now, my in-laws from my first marriage live out in Franklin. That is awesome. I still go up there and ride on the Natchez Trace Parkway and go to Leaper's Fork and Puckett's Grocery on a 70-mile ride. I mean, it's so beautiful up there. Nashville, that's the problem with the SEC tournament being in Nashville. I mean, everybody wants to go see their teams, I'm sure, but there's also you're going to Nashville. When we were there for SEC Media Days, remember going out on Broadway? There were people everywhere. And the rain killed that. What was the group? There was a group that were going to have an outdoor concert, and they had to cancel it because of weather. Yeah. But my wife, Audrey, and I went into some food court thing that's right there on Broadway, and we heard this just unbelievable voice. And I'm like, God, I said, man, they must have a DJ in here playing it. And it was a girl, a young girl playing. And you see that up and down Broadway. And God, Nashville. And it's changed, it's gotten bigger and all that, but you don't want it to be as big as Atlanta, but why not just if you're not going to have it in Birmingham, just do media days every year, swap it Nashville, and Atlanta does a great job too, but man, the ability to just walk out of the hotels on Broadway. Nobody's got a better deal than Nashville.
Well, look, there is talk that eventually media days and headquarters and things like that will be headquartered here. I'm obviously here for it out of selfish convenience, but it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
With the airport I was there dropping family off this morning. I mean, every time you go, that place is expanded or added something new. So I think it makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. One of which is, you've got a school in your conference in that city, among other things. But I hope we get there. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be, looking at it the last few minutes before you've got to go, when you think about the crowds that are coming in, is this all Kentucky? Or I think everybody's starting to follow their teams, but still Kentucky will have the most fans of anybody.
Well, let me throw this at you. We were having this discussion on our SEC tournament prediction show yesterday, in which we all revealed our brackets. But what is that when you go on ESPN and you're looking at the college basketball scoreboard or football or whatever, it says tickets available as low as X. What is that amount if it's Tennessee, Kentucky in the championship game?
Unbelievable.
Yeah, that's the one that if you are a ticket scalper, you are rooting for, and I'm sure ESPN is too.
Well, is ticket scalping in Tennessee legal?
You're probably asking the wrong guy. From what I remember, I think you can still get tickets near the arena if you walk up. But I mean, I've had media passes for 20 years now, so it's been a long time since I had to go and get them that way.
And I know in Alabama it's legal. And I've got my man Snake from Atlanta. I go, what's your name? He goes,
it's legal, but I think sometimes they have limits around venues. Like you can't do it on the street next to the arena or something. I don't know what the rules are at the moment.
Yeah, but I think this is going to be unbelievable. I can't wait to get up. I've got some stuff I've got to do before I get up there. But man, love having you on and appreciate so much what you do. I have so many people that we're sending your way, and send them our way if you can. And because we're building this SEC Sidelines Sports Network and SECU, it is a family. It's a lot of fun, but I got a lot of respect for you and the team that you have on there. And let people know how they can follow you. And let's do this again next week. And I look forward to seeing you when we get up to Nashville.
Yeah, main place you can find my work is Southeastern 14 on YouTube. We cover football, basketball, and yes, baseball. There will be an SEC series just a couple miles down the road from Bridgestone Arena where the tournament will be taken. I may be slipping out a couple of times to go catch some Vandy and Auburn. If I'm not watching that,
I'll be there
in the ballpark. then I'll be watching it on my phone from the arena. But yeah, first weekend of SEC baseball starts, so a lot going on. We'll have a live stream during the selection show where we will be reacting to where SEC teams get sent in the bracket live. We've done a couple live reaction shows this last weekend. We had about 700 people on, over 600 on at once for the award show Sunday night. We had 800 at once watching our live stream after Tennessee and Kentucky. So, yeah, we've been getting a good crowd, and I think people will love our hoops coverage.
Well, I mean, it just goes to show you, we're not there yet culturally, where basketball is like it is in the Northeast, but we're getting there. Remember, they started football, and who owns football now? Although we've loaned the national championship out, it's on rent for 1 year to the Big Ten.
Right.
We'll get it.
Right.
We'll get it back. All right. Thank you. We'll see you in Nashville, man. I love having you on here. Appreciate it.
And likewise. Thank you, Rob.
All right, you bet. All right, we're going to have Yancy Porter on with us here in just a minute from Rebel Yell Hotline. Catch him Monday nights, 6 p.m., Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis. And also, Super Talk Mississippi goes out all over the great state of Mississippi. They have a huge audience. Great show. You need to listen to it. Chuck Roundsville, of course, Yancy Porter, Harry Harrison, Gary Darby, my man Gordon Ford is on. I've never met anybody that's a basketball. There's a handful of them, these basketball savants. Of course, Gordon was a manager back in the day when he was at Ole Miss. Keith Carter was on that team. And, oh, my God, do they know basketball? But anyway, Yancy will be on with us in just a minute. And then Rodney Orr, Tider Insider. Of course, he's written a pretty cool book, Bigger Than Bama by Rodney Orr. And we'll put the QR code up there for you in a few minutes so you can order it. Now, those Gator fans right now, you can see over my right shoulder, I'm like the weatherman. This cold front coming down from the middle of America, going to be moving in by the weekend, going to bring some rain and showers with us. Highs in the 70s, but that colder weather could produce some storms, so be ready. Now, you can see my Florida, it's all 16. We got ahead of the curve. Now, my friend Barnwood Brenda, Batesville, Mississippi, and her daughter owns this Bim Bam's Grill, food, wings, cold beer, everything on Jackson Avenue in Oxford, Mississippi. Brenda will make you one of those. They're $800, hand carved out of cypress, cedar, whatever wood you wanted to do it with. That was carved out of cypress. But anyway, love having this Chris Lee on here. The bottom line, folks, when we start taking a look at the Southeastern Conference, this league is getting better. You talk about, and we use this term parity a lot. Sometimes parity can mean you just got a lot of bad teams. This year, top to bottom in the SEC, and we're going to find out if our theories are correct or not when they get into the NCAA tournament, because that's when you start playing more teams. That's why I keep going back to these small private Catholic universities. They are just basketball havens. And Gonzaga, you think about St. John's, you think about Georgetown, Creighton. There are so many of them around, St. Joseph's, you name them, Villanova. And I go back to some really cool stuff that was said. And before I get to Buddy, Jay Wright, before he left due to the frustration of the NIL, it was so bad. Jay Wright left, but he said when they first got to Villanova, they were recruiting in their first 3 years 5 or 6 5-star recruits, okay? They did that, and they weren't winning. They were about 500. They realized they weren't recruiting to the model that fit the culture of Villanova. Small, private, inner city, Catholic university, very rigid academic standards. And they began to recruit to the model, and Jay Wright won a couple of national championships. But now he's an analyst on TV. I predict he comes back into coaching. I don't know where, but you can't keep coaches coach and players play. That's how it is. Buddy, back in the new studio.
Hey, Rob, how you doing?
Good. Back in the studio. You've been there since last night when I was on your show.
Exactly right. We're having a little internet problem here. We're trying to get it resolved here. Brenda's on the phone to me, and he's telling me what to do. What's up,
Okay.
Brenda? What do I do? Rodney is
Yeah, if you see Rodney in
Yeah.
there, see if you can bring him.
I'll see it. Let's see if Rodney's on there.
Yeah, Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider. Here it is. Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, is with us right now. And, buddy, we got Rodney Orr. Rodney, I just was talking about your book. We're having some technical issues today, but I'm holding up your book for people to see, Bigger Than Bama. All right. It's a great book. I started reading it, and it talks a lot about the influence of your parents and your faith in your life. And it's an incredible story of what you have been through. Personally, I recommend people buy a copy of this book. People need to read more. Rodney, spring practice is underway in Tuscaloosa. It's underway in a lot of schools around the Southeastern Conference. Kalen DeBoer is a new coach at Alabama. I know that you're given complete access to attend to all the practices and ask all the questions you want. So how are things going?
Well, that's not exactly true.
April Fool's is coming up, though. Never mind.
Yeah. But yeah, we have gotten a little more access, obviously. I mean, we've been allowed to watch 30 minutes of one of the practices, the first 30 minutes. And, it's, then of course, breaking out of the Saban mold here, we're allowed to speak with the assistant coaches, the coordinators. And last week we had that opportunity on both sides of the balls. That was really interesting. So it's been a little bit more access. There's some differences, obviously, when you're talking about kind of the approach and all of that. But overall, I mean, Rob, I thought the practice that we got the opportunity to watch was really upbeat, really fast, a lot of tempo, a lot of loud music, which was unusual. The only time I've heard music played at an Alabama practice before last Wednesday was Rocky Top every year for the Tennessee game. With that said, no, I mean, I think Kalen DeBoer's made a lot of the right moves, and looks like the transition's going pretty well right now.
Yeah, Buddy Martin, Brendan's dad.
Wait, hold on. Bear Bryant's not there? He left?
Hey, Rodney, I don't know if you've met Buddy before, but Buddy Martin's one of the best sports writers in America. My friend and a great mentor to me. He was on the old Skywriters tour. So we're having some technical difficulties in the studios down in Ocala. Buddy is over in Panama City in L.A., Lower Alabama. We still claim that, don't we? Yeah, we still claim it in Alabama as Lower Alabama. But, Buddy, jump in here.
Y'all can't have it, and y'all can't have it anymore. I'm here now, and I have rights, ancestral rights, because my great-great-grandfather lived in Florala. Was the preacher at the First Baptist Church in Florala 100 years ago. So you can't have it anymore. I'm taking it back, okay?
We've got a war started for Lower Alabama.
No.
But,
border war.
Buddy, jump in here with some questions for Rodney, because he has covered Alabama for close to 30 years. Nobody better. Folks, Tighter Insider, it's only $48 a year. This is the May Veterinary Clinic, Tuscaloosa, Northport. Tighter Insider report. But, Buddy, jump in here with Rodney.
I've seen Rodney on the show a few times. I know he knows his stuff. I've been watching Alabama football a long time, and back to Bear Bryant, by the way. And I thought maybe the guy who knew the most about it was Feinbaum, but maybe Rodney might be my new Alabama guy. He probably knows it more. I'm anxious to see what happens there. Rodney, you talk about you like to pretend like things can be business as usual, and DeBoer obviously did a fantastic job at Washington. He's the guy that you think might be an it guy, but boy, I'll tell you, I wouldn't want to be the guy replacing Nick Saban. And we all know that's an obvious story. It's so hard to follow college football right now because it used to be like 5 or 6 teams. You got it covered. Those are the same. They always make it to the end. But there's so many new teams and new coaches, and with all the changes in the rules, I can't keep up, Rodney. I can't keep up. I'm pretty good at it. But I mean, my gosh, explain to me in 25 words or less the meaning of NIL. I mean, come on. So I'm all for progress, and I want to say this to Ryan. Rob knows this. I'm a longtime advocate of playoff system back in the day, and I'm not bragging on myself here, but I just said back when I was in Jacksonville in 1990, I wrote a column saying it's time for the NCAA to skinny up, get your top 65 teams, and go play, and get a playoff going. And I thought it was a competitive TV market, and the NFL was killing them. Well, guess what? I'm sorry I ever said that. And I'm beginning to wonder if we'll be sorry now because things are going too fast for me, Rodney.
Yeah, well, listen, you're not alone. They're going a little bit fast for me as well. But there's this thing is really changing. Like you said, it's changing rapidly, and I think a lot more change is coming right now. There's got to be, because if they don't get a grip on what's going on with this NIL and this transfer portal and have some kind of boundaries, it's a free for all right now. But what I don't understand is, because I'm not real smart, but I do know that I said 4 years ago that when we saw this coming, I said they better coaches, staff, Nick Saban better hire a retention staff because this is going to go crazy. And these kids jumping ship. I mean, Julian Sayin was here for 2 weeks. He went through Rose Bowl practices with Alabama. He went through Rose Bowl practices with Alabama, and now he's at spring practice with Ohio State. So I mean, it's crazy. It is. It's not the college football that you said obviously you covered Coach Bryant, Bear Bryant, and you went through that era. I did too. That's when I, first started following Alabama. So, it's nothing like it was back then.
I'm not one of these get off my
sure.
lawn guys. I mean, I understand. I like a lot of the changes in football. And you remember now, you probably go back with me and Rob in the regards that we used to see one game a week in college football.
Yeah. Oh,
now
tell
if
me
we don't
about
have
it.
every SEC
Tell me about
on, we're upset. And it's okay, I guess. And I like it. It's great. The growth of the SEC has been phenomenal. Rob, hold that book up again.
Yeah, it is a great book.
I think I saw it said bigger than Mama, right? Bigger
No,
than Mama.
big.
Oh, wait a minute, Bama.
Yeah. No, it's a great book.
Let
me throw something at both of y'all. And I would love to have this man on the show. Rodney, our mutual friend, and I have talked about him. Keith Donovan, who is now the historian for college football on ESPN. He talked about in that 150 years of college football, the great ESPN special that Ivan Mazel, we've had him on the show, was the executive director, producer. He's from Mobile, Ivan is.
Yeah. He's on 3 now. He's
on 3 now, yeah. He was so good talking about that. He said, back in the 70s, when we were growing up, you had essentially a television aristocracy of the same teams. You could be on, Rodney, only 5 times in 2 years. But look at the teams that were part of that television aristocracy then. And then there were teams on the next tier that were on a lot, but not as much. They're pretty much still the same, Rodney.
Well, yeah, they are. I mean, Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, all that. But they're still on, it's just like you said, so many, like Buddy said, I mean, you got SEC Network, you got ESPN. At that time, you only had ABC, And when there was a national doubleheader coming up that next weekend, I mean, man, we were in hog heaven, man. Order that pizza, and get some college football. Hey, I watched a lot of those games. That one game a week, the game of the week. I watched those games so I could watch the score scroll across the bottom of the screen, every now and then when they'd flash a score, and Bill Fleming might occasionally do a cut in or whatever. But it was a totally different time. And I'll tell you this story too, not to deviate too much here, but Buddy, you mentioned him a week. And growing up an Alabama fan in South Texas, Corpus Christi, Texas, we didn't have access to Alabama coverage there. Okay. So, as you know, back in those days, Rob and Buddy, long distance fees on the weekend were maybe 17, 18 cents a minute,
Yeah.
whatever they were. I'd call long distance to my brother who lived in Mobile, and this is in the book. He'd put the phone by the radio.
Yep.
And I'd listen to the first half long distance, hang up at halftime, call back 15 minutes later, listen to the second half.
Absolutely.
So that's the way it was back then.
Yeah.
People don't understand that the younger generation.
Yeah.
We
Well, not
used
only
to
that,
have
you could
radio.
call your
Yeah.
you could call sorry, Rob. You
No,
could
go
call
ahead.
your local talk show, if there was one, station, and listen, and you could listen on hold to the game. You know, they put you on, let you listen to the game on hold. The greatest thing I ever saw was when I went to CBS to work there with Bradshaw back in the day, was to go in on a Sunday and see every NFL game. Every
God.
NFL. Unbelievable. Who knew there'd be a one day or
Yeah.
home service you could do that with? But just
Yeah.
to get the chance to watch the games, guys, was a
Yeah.
treat. And man, we're overloaded now with so much stuff. And I guess it's good. I don't know. But the transition, you're right, Alabama is going to be so interesting. History tells us don't be the guy that follows the guy. Be the guy that follows the guy who followed the guy.
Well, and see, buddy, I think that's one reason that Greg Byrne was so he was. I think that was Kalen DeBoer. I mean, he said, "Look, I'm not. I embrace the what Nick Saban has done, but also embrace the opportunity of being there, and I'm going to do it my way." And he's jumping into a fire. There's no doubt about that. We all know that. But again, I think the one thing that's impressed me so far is he hasn't been intimidated by it. I mean, they analyze every little thing here, as you know, and again, I mean, some of it could have already blown up on him, and it didn't. Caleb Downs jumped in the portal, goes to Ohio State. They made a big deal out of that. Julian Sayin goes to Ohio State. Ryan Williams had decommitted before DeBoer ever got the job. Now, here's the impressive thing: 15 days later, DeBoer gets Ryan Williams to recommit. That was a start in a positive direction. He's brought in some really good transfers already. He lost Ryan Grubb, the offensive coordinator who had been with him for all those years, and the offensive line coach Huff, who came here for about 10 days and then went to the Seattle Seahawks. And he just made that a smooth transition. He hired, Nick Sheridan, obviously, as offensive coordinator. He got an offensive line coach from Baylor, Chris Kapolovic. And so he's done a really nice job when he's had some obstacles that have already cropped up. And people may say, well, those are not really major things. Well, they are here. I mean, these are the things that people kind of judge you on. And some of these things that have cropped up, he's handled really, really well. I mean, obviously, the proof is going to be in the pudding. How's he going to? Nobody's going to win 6 national championships in 12 years like Saban did, over that span or whatever. But, again, I think right now he's made all the right moves.
Well, it's changed a whole bunch, guys, as we know. I'm not of the mind that he can't do it there. But if you go back in history, how many coaches can you name who were successful after following the guy? Now, Gene Stallings didn't follow Bear, right? So,
Right.
Bill Curry.
So obviously he would. But I mean, one of the guys and Urban Meyer didn't follow Spurrier, but the same specter was there, even though it was a couple of generations removed. And this is for Urban. I've talked about him many times. It was a daunting task. I did a book one time that had a picture of Spurrier and sort of a cloud overlooking Florida football and Werfel and Meyer, whatever. And someone brought it up to him and said, "Do you feel like Steve Spurrier is watching over you?" He said, "Yeah, and they ought to be. He's earned the right to do that." Urban, of course, as we know, won 2 national championships. But you want to be the guy that follows the guy. I don't know what will happen. They got a good coach, a really good coach, and why wouldn't he take the job? Of course you're going to take the job. You want to be the coach at Alabama? Take the job, So that happened to me 1 year ago. You'll appreciate this name, Rodney, Ray Perkins.
Yeah.
Much hated by many Alabama fans. A friend of mine, I was in New York and when he was coaching the Giants. and I was at his house in Franklin Lakes on a July 4th weekend. Just he and I and our wives. We played tennis that day, and we're sitting there having a brew and cooking a steak. And I said to him, "What are you going to do when they call you in Tuscaloosa and say come home to Mama?" But you know, Bears going to retire, and there's about 3 or 4 guys who they look at, and you're one of them. Without batting an eye, he said, "I'm going to go." Wow. The New York Giants go, "Yeah, I'm going to go if they do," and he did. Now Ray made a bunch of mistakes, not the least of which was taking the tower down when he did. But you know, it's hard, especially when you follow a guy who was, you know, your coach.
It's real hard. Yeah, I mean, you make a great point. History does not favor the guy following a legend for sure. And you know, Perkins did do a good job. I mean, he inherited a really tough situation too. It's a little bit different. I mean, Coach Bryant's recruiting had fallen off a little bit, and you know, the Alabama people didn't realize that. They thought that everything Coach Bryant did was you know, and they thought Perkins was inheriting a gold mine, which he was not at the time, because again, it had been depleted. But you know, so we'll see. I mean, Kalen DeBoer, he's got a great track record so far. 104-12 is his record. Played for the national championship this past year. He's a great coach, but you know, that doesn't always ensure success.
Yeah. Well, Rodney, and thinking about that, when he gets to Alabama, just when he sees the crowd at the spring game, that's going to send chills up his spine. But I think that the culture that they built at Alabama, it lends itself to winning because so much is expected of you, like it is at these other SEC powerhouses. Coaches don't sleep well at night after a loss, and they shouldn't, because they're getting paid a lot of money. But that's like people in business. If you own a business and sales are down, you know, you worry about being able to keep the doors open. Pressure isn't necessarily a bad thing. Raising the bar is a great thing. And making it to where people don't fear failing, therefore they work harder, is dangerous. And Rodney and Buddy, you're right. I can remember we're talking about the games on TV. I mean, Keith Jackson and Frank Broyles. Did it get any better than that? We talked about, you know, Fred Astaire, you know, and Ginger Rogers. That was a great pair. But that ain't Keith Jackson and Frank Broyles. That was as good as it got.
I also like Chris Schenkel and Bud Wilkinson.
How about that for a name?
Hey, remember when Chris Schenkel, they would manually change the scores on the set of ABC College Football with that long pole?
Hey, Rob, you're the man of many voices. You can do a Chris Schenkel, can't you?
No, not really. Chris Schenkel had such a good voice. No. It was a golden voice, but you hung on every word. And then Bud Wilkinson. Remember when ESPN started 79 and 80, you would have the Valvoline college football, and they would replay the games. Remember you had that box on top of your TV set, and you would just scroll over there, and you would watch the replays of all those games. You know,
they'd have and say, moving ahead now to the third quarter. You know.
Yeah.
But you know what? College, I've been doing radio. I started in 1987. And then I would do it filling in and co-hosting in Memphis with my friend, the late Jeff Weinberger, wherever he was for years. The coolest part about what we get to do, Rodney knows this, Buddy, you know it, is to interact with the fans. Because it ain't about us. It's about them. It's about the game. We're conduits to it. And like what Rodney does with Tider Insider. Buddy, what y'all do with GatorbaitMedia.com. You pick the school. You've got fans out there, and a lot of them, I noticed this, 30 days into starting this show, we had listeners in 48 different countries. You know what that is? Ooh. Those are expats. Those are military people. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Like my brother-in-law, Kurt Ham. I mean, he's over there in Fallujah waving a Tennessee flag after they finished that battle. He got the right to do that, you know? I mean, there are fans. You pick the school. I wish we could do a show or shows occasionally and just do a live hookup to, say, people over at Bagram Air Force Base in Afghanistan, or on the DMZ along the Korea-North Korea border, or people over in Okinawa, or on the USS Iwo Jima off the coast of North Korea, or wherever they are. because that's what's so fun about doing it. Think about, I hope we didn't lose Rodney, but these technical gremlins are eating us up today. But buddy, that's why you can never retire. I mean, because the great storytellers, where would we be without Herodotus in 488 BC? He's the one, hence
Wait
the
a
name.
minute now. You're going back a little ways there. Who do you write for? I've forgotten.
My dad knew him.
Oh, okay.
In 488 BC. But history, like just when, and we lost Rodney.
If they had to have quills and scrolls and writing on parchment, that would be tough. Yeah. Hey, by the way, I looked up the book. I remember hearing it. I was on a show with Keith one time, on TV special.
With Keith Jackson?
No. They're talking about
Keith Donovan. Yeah.
The Missing Ring. That's the one I have not read. I want to read about the year they didn't get the ring that year because of the racism charge, Yeah. And what happened there. Donovan's a really good researcher and a really good writer. He's got the Bart Starr book, right? Didn't he write that? Anyway, bottom line is that he's a pro. 8 books. He's written 8 books. So for sure.
Hey, look, we're gonna get him on the show. I've got someone who's friends with him. But think about this: all these great broadcasters, Chris Schenkel, Bud Wilkinson. Chris Schenkel was so good; he was just classy. I'll tell you another one. I don't know if did you know Kurt Gowdy, Charlie Jones,
Wyoming Cowboy? You kidding me?
I mean, yeah. See,
Charlie Jones actually one time asked me to write a book about him, and we almost did. Yeah. Charlie
wow.
Jones, yeah.
Well, my sons spend a lot of time out in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And when they fly into Denver, they said that drive from Denver to Jackson, Wyoming, it's about 7.5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So once you get into Wyoming, you get in what's called the high. It's not the high plains, maybe.
The Grand Tetons is where it really comes together.
And the winds on the interstate there, they said, it'll blow you off the road. They said, Wilson said,
listen,
you got white knuckles.
I've been there for football games. I've almost gotten blown off the road at nighttime.
Have you been to Laramie? Have you been to Laramie at University of Wyoming?
I was in Denver for 17 years.
All right.
Yeah.
This is so cool. I got to ask you this. Now, I watch a lot of football. You've forgotten more than I know about it, but University of Wyoming has something called the High Altitude Performance Center. It's 7,300 feet or 7,700 feet. Mm-hmm. And the fans out there get into the football. But I go back to something Pat Dye said when he came to Auburn in 1981. He said, I was an All-American at Georgia, and then I coached with Coach Bryant for 9 years. I was at East Carolina for 6, and everybody in North Carolina is talking about the 4 corners even in July. I go to Wyoming for that year, and they're talking about the rodeo. I get down here to Alabama, they're talking about college football all the time. But I think to talk about I just think there's an interest in college football wherever you go. My friend Tim Horton's a running backs coach at the Air Force Academy. He said, I never have a problem getting those guys out of bed in the morning. Talk about those schools out there.
I love listen, I go back a long way with the Air Force Academy. I love what they did. Kenny Hatfield, all the way through the whole thing. But here's the thing you got to know. Covered many a game at Folsom with the Colorado Buffaloes in the good days and the bad, back when they couldn't win a game. And then, of course, they had a national championship team or co-national championship team. Beautiful place. But I would go there and I'd look around. I say to my friend Woody Page, they think this is big time football. You could fit this field in the middle of most SEC stadiums. This is not really college football as I knew it. When you grow up in the SEC, watching those crowds and watching those teams, when you go out and you see a crowd of 45,000, you're not terribly impressed. Beautiful setting. I love the setting. I love what they did there, but it's just a different kind. And I'm sorry, it is the cliche and it is the motto. It just means more. It's a whole different deal. But now there's some college football's got some great venues. Lincoln, Nebraska was the closest thing I saw to an SEC venue. They sell out every game no matter what. But I never got a chance to do the SEC or the national tour. I wanted to do the top 25 stadiums. I never went to the Big House. There's several more I didn't go. I love Notre Dame, by the way. I often said if an alien came down here, and this is anti to what I said about the SEC, and they said, what's college football? Come and be to South Bend in September and October when the leaves are turning. I'll tell you what it looks like. Beautiful settings. There are other great settings in college football around, but there's only one league like the SEC.
Yeah. Well, Notre Dame, I got a lot of friends. Of course, I went to Christian Brothers High School. Our colors were purple and gold.
You and Feinbaum. Isn't that where Feinbaum went?
Yeah, Feinbaum went to Christian Brothers High School. Yeah. And then he finished at White Station where my kids finished. Right. But I'll tell you this, Notre Dame, I've got so many Catholic friends being a Scotch-Irish Catholic. They said, Brown, tailgating up there is a large steel, like a garbage can. You got a fire going, everybody standing around there eating brats and drinking Croissant beer like old style, or hams, which is kind of buried behind the sign. But they talk about, and there's a mass in every dorm on campus every day. And that's a big deal. But touchdown Jesus and all that. And Doug Dean, our good friend, AU Dose in Birmingham, he's watching right now while he's working, talked about, putting something like that up at Jordan-Hare Stadium. But there's only one touchdown Jesus in South Bend. But around the country, I wish you would write a book, buddy. And I think it would be a great one for you to write about your experiences as a writer, because we are in an era where people throw 600 words against the wall and they hope it sticks. And the grammar, look, I still indent 5 spaces to the right when I start a sentence. I had a typing teacher in high school, Brother John Michael. The man was at least 8 feet tall, 400 pounds. They wore those black robes with the white collars.
And would wrap your knuckles if you did it wrong.
Oh, let me tell you, if you looked at the keys, he'd say, don't look at the keys, you boob. If you did it again, he'd say, don't look at the keys, you jackass. The third time, he grabbed you by the back of your neck, out of your seat, and you were typing with your face. I learned valuable lessons, but I wouldn't swap it for anything in the world. Just like last night, that was one of the coolest shows. Thank you so much for letting me be on there with you and Franz.
Great.
Franz talking about the story about the Florida player, what happened. And Franz got emotional. Yeah, I never knew that.
I kind of take claim for discovering Larry Dupree because I saw him play in high school and covered high school. And I went back and told my boss, who was a sports editor, they got this guy, Larry Dupree, but Clinton, Florida's not even looking at him.
Yeah.
They weren't. And the word got out after they found out what kind of player he was. Georgia came after him. As soon as Georgia came after him, they went and signed him. And as I said, Tommy Shannon, who was the guy that Spurrier succeeded in Florida, and I don't mean to bore people with Florida stories, tells me to this day, still the greatest Gator football player he ever saw, he played with him, was Larry Dupree. And most people never heard of him. But he was a special. No, that's fun. Listen, talking about the stories, you and I are going to be doing something soon, hopefully, called SECU. And here's the kind of thing I'm talking about. What's your experience in Austin, Texas? Well, I was blessed to be able to go out there a couple of times. Once for a seminar when Walter Byers was the head of the NCAA for 5 days and go through that. They had a guy named Jones Ramsey. It was an SID. Now, for those of you who don't know what an SID is, Sports Information Director, they were unbelievable what they did. Bob Hartley of Mississippi State would come to the airport and pick up visiting writers, whatever. But Jones is a big old guy. And when I was out there at the tournament, we had at the seminar, we had a ping pong tournament, and I won it somehow, and I wound up with a Texas shirt, pullover, and I love that shirt. I love because of the tradition. I love Texas. But Jones was famous for saying, out here in Austin, we have 2 seasons, football and spring football. That was his famous quote that was used. So, and he was right. Anyway, I know we're running out to the end of the time here.
No, let me say this, that when you look at what is going on, I love hearing this because we're going to be doing with Ken Capps, Football Writers Association of America. He's a great writer. He's on the show every week. He takes off a little bit after football season until media days crank back up. But we're going to talk with him. We're going to talk to people.
Do you have our room in Dallas yet, by the way?
No, but I don't have it yet, but we're going to have to get a place for our headquarters out there because we'll be doing the show there. Yeah. And here's the thing. There's going to be a big billboard on I-20 when you come into Dallas. It's going to be 40 by 40 feet, and it's going to say Texas in orange and white, and in the bottom right-hand corner, welcomes the SEC.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of reverse. It's the other way around, just in case you forgot to. We're welcoming Texas. But that's okay. I get it.
Yeah, but we're going to have – I was out at Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company in Collierville, Tennessee, hewlettandunn.com, one of our sponsors, last week talking to Charles Hall, the owner. We're going to do one about the hat sizes, and he's already got it ready to go. He's on spring break this week with his kids, but we're going to go out there and talk about –
Are you going to go black hat on me? Are you going to go black hat?
A cowboy hat, a black hat, like Rip on Yellowstone. Or there's a brown, a tan hat, or a white hat.
Rib wears that black hat like nobody else does. I think you might be more of a over tan guy. I don't know.
Well, and think about what did the Lone Ranger wear? A white hat.
White.
Okay. What did Roy Rogers? What was Roy Rogers' horse's name?
Trigger.
Yes. Buddy, don't tell me that you don't have it. You have got it. You're getting better and better and better because I've been having you on and being on with you for 2.5 years now. Your acumen, your skills, your talent, your repertoire, your depth of knowledge is unbelievable. And you talk about nobody gets tired of hearing great stories. So never apologize for being exceptional. You trying to shrink and make yourself less of a deal to make others around you feel less uncomfortable. Don't ever do that. You got it.
Promise me one thing. We're going to be doing a lot of this in the future, I think.
Yeah.
Let's don't both become get off my lawn guys, okay?
Just one of us at a time. Wait,
only one.
What Chuck Oliver, my friend up in Atlanta, Southern Sports Today, says, yelling at the clouds. You can either get off of my lawn, like MJ says over here at the farm when people cut the corners, or get off, yelling at the clouds. But I'll say this before we go. Had some technical issues today. We'll get Yancy Porter back on. We lost Rodney Orr, technical gremlins. But you know what? When you're going through hell, technically, you know what you do?
Go to Atlanta.
Going.
Oh, no.
Hey, by the way, no matter where you go, heaven or hell, you will go through the Atlanta airport. Isn't that true?
Planes. That's a famous line back in the day from all the old days of the coaches. That meant if you're going to heaven or hell, you got to change planes in Atlanta. And that's when you had to. By the way, just a little update on your executive producer. His whole city is black and out. The Cox cable is down till 2:00. So it's not good. Luckily, we've got a chance to do another show with you.
How I love it.
It's going to be a regular thing.
Well, last night was so much fun. I tell you, you've got, is it Kyle Curtis is the young fellow?
Kyle Curtis is my young writer. Yeah, he's got a lot of
really
promise.
Good. Hey, and folks, you need to be watching our show, SEC Sidelines Sports Network, SECU, also the Buddy Martin Show. We're building a network. So as Brendan says, the 40,000 feet above, you can drill down local and look at that SEC map behind me for people covering all these schools. But also loved it. Franz Beard, Moulton. You've got some great writers on there that come on. And David Whitley, who's another great one.
He'll be on tonight.
Okay.
David will be on tonight.
And I'll be watching it. And another thing real quick before we go, smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner on YouTube. Yeah. And on your Android or iPhone, allow notifications. 3 things, history, traditions, and heroes. That's what we're here for. We appreciate our viewers, listeners. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your neighbors. Support all of our
thanks
sponsors.
for making fun of my wallpaper, okay? I'm sorry. I'm in the middle of changing studios.
Hey, you're in a transition phase. Yeah, and you do know what's over my left shoulder. That is the unfinished version. It's from Audrey's father, the late Billy Ham. It's signed by Johnny Majors. Audrey went to every Tennessee game with her dad or watched him or listened to him. And so he's been gone about 20 years. So I'm married to Evolve for life. Hey, send me some cool.
I'm married to a Seminole, so there you go.
Whoa. Hey, by the way, why haven't they ever gone to John Anderson's song Seminole Wins as their fight? Of course, they've already got a great fight song. I get that. Yeah, but I will do Gene Deckerhoff. Florida State football here. Chief Osceola on Renegade as this crowd at Doak S. Campbell Stadium comes rising to their feet. The Spanish moss, the winds are blowing, and here come the Seminoles as Chief Osceola plants the spear at the 50-yard line. I mean, that
Deckerhoff was a very Deckerhoff, it pains me to say it, was a very underrated announcer. He would do the Seminoles on Saturday and Ducks on Sunday.
And he's still doing Tampa Bay Bucks.
Yeah.
But he's not doing the Seminoles. But look, unbelievable. Thank you so much, buddy, having you on the show. But we'll be back on watching you tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern live.
There you go.
Where can they get you?
Well, you can go to just do the Buddy Martin Show on YouTube. You'll find us there. We'll be talking. We have our usual cast of characters. And tomorrow night, we're going to have the head ball coach talking about the new award he got, which for the outstanding people who made the Walter Camp All-American team 50 years, 60 years later. So Steve Spurrier tomorrow night. So listen, I know how kind of music you have to go out with, but I was going to volunteer to sing. But maybe I shouldn't do that. Maybe I'll let you just
sing a little Sinatra. Fly me to the moon.
I wouldn't dare.
Had a wing and a prayer. Hey, look, little Bailey's Irish whiskey here. We'll be back on. Watch Buddy Martin tonight, 9 p.m. We'll be back on the morning at 8 a.m. Central. Thanks for watching, everybody. We are out of here. All right. You bet.